And when she was suffering, feeling pain in her body because she walked so far that day, she was grateful to know how it felt to be in pain or to be poor. She was grateful for the experience because then she better understood how the people she served felt.
I'm Mark Cook, president of Windfall Partners. We get leaders unstuck and thriving with their teams. After turnarounds as chief executive, the largest ever studies of award-winning leaders, a New York Times bestseller, and 5-star keynotes. I've coached 4,000 client wins at top brands. My Bold Encounters is an advanced system for leading. First, powerful steps on a path forward. Second, problem-solving skills that beat obstacles fast. Now, lead with Bold Encounters today.
Welcome to Bold Encounters. I'm Mark Cook, and I am so excited for today. We have Ann Stigsson, a dear friend of mine, and I'm such good friends with her family, and she has come all the way to the United States, and so I grabbed a moment with her to record some of her exciting stories of working directly with Mother Teresa and of Mother Teresa. She's a palliative care expert and a counselor in hospice, and so she has really been impacted by this experience. How are you doing, Ann?
I'm great, thank you.
It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you too.
Thanks for doing this.
Let's see if my English will be enough.
It will be great.
I'll try my best.
You have wonderful English. We've had a previous interview. We're going to use some of that, if not all of it. But I wanted to get a second chance to interview you because I wanted to hear some of your favorite stories about working with Mother Teresa, about Mother Teresa, and the like. Do you have a particular story that really impacted you?
You know, I have many stories and I have many feelings when I think about the stories that I do have with Mother Teresa and her nuns. One story that I can tell is about we had a problem. We didn't know how to treat the rickshaw guy.
Those rickshaw drivers?
Yes, they were rickshaw drivers, like human-driven taxis. Yes, and we saw that they were working very hard. We wanted to use the rickshaws, but it felt very wrong because they were treated very badly and working very hard for very little money. So we asked Mother Teresa how could we think about this in the best way. And she encouraged us to use the rickshaws, but use them, not misuse them, but use them and give them good money for their work. But only to give them money without using their work would take away their dignity, because they had dignity and worth and they wanted to provide for their family, and this was the way they did it. So she encouraged us to get involved and to use the rickshaws and to pay and to, in that way, love them and give them dignity.
So she saw a bigger picture. She saw that these people were somewhat like employees or people that were doing consulting work or something. They were vendors of hers, so to speak, and she was going to pay them. But she also recognized the value of hard work. There's nothing wrong with hard work if it's safe and it's not abusive and you're paid fairly for it. Is that kind of the spirit she was projecting?
Absolutely. And when she was helping children and families, she made sure she helped the children to go to school, to help them to learn some skills so they could provide for their family. So she always, that was like in a center of the way she was thinking. So not only helping, but helping people to help themselves.
So they had a way to help their lives and their families' lives by working hard.
Yeah.
It's terrific.
Yes.
It's really great. What else can you tell me about you? Tell me the story about you meeting her for the very first time before working with her, and what that did sometimes with other people.
You know, I think she had a way of changing your heart. She moved the people that was in contact with her. People who just met her very briefly could sometimes just fall into tears, and they were very emotional. They were very touched by her presence. And I felt the same when I met her. She was it wasn't like meeting a movie star or someone who was up there in the stars where no one else was. She was very humble, and she looked you into your eyes. She smiled, and she smiled at every person she met, and also me, but also the king, also the poor. Like, she was kind to everyone, smiling to everyone. And that was, it's hard to describe, but it did affect me very deeply, because it was not only a smile, it was not only her words, it was she meant her smile, she meant what she said. She wasn't just talking about love, she was living a life of love.
Almost like not socializing, but recognizing who you really were deep down as a human and what you meant to God and the universe, and you mattered. Yes. And she was present with you.
Yes, and I could feel that. I felt that was feeling true, not only for me, but for everyone else. And I think she taught everyone who met her this lesson of love. And if you didn't love the person that you served, she said it wasn't worth anything. So you need to love the people you serve for it to matter.
The mechanics didn't matter, but the love did, and
yes.
the caring.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes.
Once you had met her and had your turn meeting her for the first time, did you ever witness kind of from the side other people meeting her and really being touched?
Oh yes.
Tell me about that.
All the time. She lived in this house, Mother House. That wasn't her house from the beginning. She started out very simple with only herself. But after a while, many nuns wanted to work with her. So she lived in this Mother House that a former judge gave her. He said that this house is given to me by God. Now we'll give it back to him. And then from that time on, she and her sisters lived in this house. So when I came to the house, the Mother House, it was always full of people, laughter. There was a lot of joy going on in that house, both coming from Mother Teresa, but also her fellow sisters. And the visitors coming there, they always wanted to meet Mother Teresa, and she was giving them blessings, or she would just say hello, and whoever met her, you could tell that they were touched, that it meant something for them, and probably was a memory for the rest of their lives that they met this little short woman with this strong character. She wasn't only loving; she was also brave as a tiger. She was funny. She had a sense of humor. She was very hardworking, and she had a sense of. She had a good sense of right and wrong, and if she had principles, and she had rules, but she just followed them as long as she believed in them. She broke them if she thought that they should be. She just found a better solution or another way to think. She was happy to change her mind.
She wasn't following things with a blindfold on. She really thought about them. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Well, and you say she worked hard. She was in a very tactile business, so to speak. And so when she shook your hand, you probably felt the handshake, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
As little as she was.
She was little and short, but her hands were quite big. Yeah, because they worked a lot.
Developed.
Yes, they developed. And she was always in the in the back of the room in the chapel when they had their mass, for instance. She had her place, and it was in the back of the room. They told me that she was up in the morning first. She went to bed the latest. She had to work on taking care of herself. That wasn't something that she did in the beginning, but she had to learn that to be able to work and help as the way she did.
Wow. Just that meeting and what you noticed in those 3 ways are like lifelong principles all by themselves to follow. Like, you walk in a room and there she is. There's happiness, but she's at the back. And she comes earlier
Yes.
than everyone else.
Yes.
And she means what she does.
Yeah.
And she cares about all those people there.
And she would never ask anyone to do anything that she wouldn't do herself. So, for instance, when she came to Palliative, the home for dying, where I worked the most, when she came there, she went directly to the toilets and cleaned them. It was important for her to show that she was like everyone else. She didn't ask anyone to do anything else than she herself could be willing to do. And that was also, I think, a very strong way to lead the spirit of her work, because she wasn't alone. In the beginning she was, but after a while, more and more people were involved in helping her and becoming nuns.
She learned over time to take care of herself, to make herself the most effective, strong instrument for others that she could, because she believed that's what she should be doing. And that's another great principle.
And at the same time, she believed in the principle of living like a poor person herself. She said she needed to understand how it was to be poor. So she chose to be poor, to eat the same food as the poor people ate, to clothe in the same way as the poor people were clothing themselves. So everything she did, she didn't have any belongings, just a very few belongings, just like the poor people did. So to understand the poor people, she wanted to be living a poor life herself. And she didn't only want to help the people, she definitely was more interested in loving them. It was not, helping wasn't enough. You also need to love.
She was going into their life. She was immersing herself in their situation and her relationship in their life, and it meant something. Yeah. And before we leave this part of our discussion, when you watched other people meet her, how did you know they were impacted? Was it their face, or what? How did you know they were so impacted by her?
Because their face was lighting up, because the tears was coming on their cheeks, because the smile on their face. It was very, very obvious that they were emotionally touched by meeting her. And people were talking about it. I talked about it when I experienced it. And I heard very many similar stories from people meeting her. So you could see it. People were telling each other about it. And so many people were knocking on her door just to see her. Yeah. She didn't have time to meet them all the time. She was working. But she took time to say hello.
She blocked out some time to help other people that were not in her group that she was intending to serve best. Yeah.
Yes, and she also she was very present. So when she was with you, talking to you, she was totally present with you. So it wasn't she wasn't stressed. She wasn't a stressed person. She made you feel calm, not only loved but also calm. And he helped you to be present. I could feel that it was easier for me to be present after seeing her being so present and feeling the impact of that. So I think I also learned that the small things, they do matter. they might be the most important things many times.
The
So-
overlooked things could be most important if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
Mm.
You know, one other thing you said that's interesting, in my work in the work world, there was a discovery that revealed itself to be a high predictor of client outcomes and financial success. It was a little bit of a mystery to me, and I didn't like it, frankly. And it was that the leader that demonstrated and modeled and showed someone literally how to do their job seemed to have better results, which sounds like micromanaging, which is contrary to other findings we'd found, where people were given the opportunity to be creative and innovative as long as they knew the ultimate outcome that was sought. And so one of the interesting things that happened is we reinvestigated, looked it up, and it turns out that where that really mattered is with feedback and training, but not in instruction. Instruction works best when you're recognizing someone else for doing those expectations. That actually communicates more deeply to everyone who hears it than if you look them right in the eye and say, do X, do Y, and do Z. So modeling there is better. And then also, instead of criticizing what happens in the past, it seems that if you look forward and you just do the work as a leader to know what should happen and immerse yourself deeply and show how it can be, that's a far more effective way to have someone understand what could happen. And then they can vary it themselves as they understand it. But for her to immerse so deeply is really instructive too. Did you have any situations where you were humbled and uncomfortable and it became apparent that she was really paying attention, or one of her nurses was, or nuns was paying attention to the one like you're describing? Was there an example or a story about that?
I could tell you about a very special story for me. So I was working in this Kalligat, a home for dying, where they had people coming in to die, basically. And one day, this man came in, and he was full of wounds, and they had worms. There were worms in the wounds, and the clothes just were like in between, like under the skin. And he had a strong smell to him when he came. And so when someone coming into this Kalligat, so he was brought in by a taxi driver or something, and so he came into the home. The smell got really strong, and instantly I just did something with my face because the smell was so strong. But then I was witness one of the nuns were not having the same face as me. She was happy to see him, and she showed it. And she went straight to him, kneeled down, and started to help him to get clean, unclothes, and new clothes. So that took quite some time.
To unmesh the clothes and the
Yes.
wounds and clean
him, and she did it with so much love, and she seemed to enjoy it. Like it was a privilege for her to help him. And I was so moved because I would love to do the same. I wasn't just as quick as her, and I was absolutely lacking something. So I asked her how she did it, because I really wanted to understand where she got the strength from. And she told me that her way of looking at people who came into this hospice, this Kalligat, who needed help, it was like it was God or Christ himself coming. So she was literally taking care of Christ or God when she had this person in front of her. So it was the same thing for her. Serving a person was the same thing as serving her God.
What other story really impacted you about her that really taught you her attention to a single person instead of many, and being so businesslike?
There is one story that I think is showing that very clearly. There was people wanted to give her washing machines, and she frequently said no. She didn't want any washing machines. The idea from the person wanting to give them was that the work would be more effective, which was could seen as a very good idea. But she said no, and he was puzzled and asked why. And she explained that she did not want to. She helped a lot of people, but she didn't want to focus on effectivity, because if she did, she was very afraid to lose the worth of the person in front of her. She said, if the people become numbers, I will lose the sense of every person's worth. And she didn't want to lose that.
It's interesting how her focus on an individual, her attention to each one of you in such a seemingly inefficient way, but in a loving, deep way, pulled people to her and kept pulling resources to her. People are offering houses and washing machines and knocking on her door offering to help, and you applying and going and working with her. And she created such a worldwide brand without ever intending to create a worldwide brand. And she accomplished so much just by focusing on each individual, because it was so authentic and powerful. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm thinking that there is so much power in it that sometimes we overlook it, but she is a perfect example of how much power there is in this way of living and this way of connecting to people. And I'm sure there's other ways, but I think the important thing is that the way that you choose is a way of not losing that vision of one person's worth. And she didn't. I mean, she did it in small things, she did it in big things, she did it every day, she did it every hour. She was very persistent. Yeah, she never lost the vision of it. The inner vision was, you could see her inner vision in her work. It was very clear to everyone that was close to her that she was living a life very authentically according to her belief of goodness and love and kindness. So,
do you have any more stories about her that you've loved?
No, when I think of her, her face comes very clearly to me. I remember how her face looked, and her hands and her feet and her appearance, her laughter. So there is, even if it was many years ago now, and she's not alive anymore, but the memories doesn't fade, like they are very much alive inside of me still. And when I think about it, it still changes my heart, makes my heart a little bit bigger because of her. When she was out walking in the street, and she was maybe needed to take the bus to get home, but she's met someone who needed that bus ticket more than her. She gave it away, and she walked home. And when she was suffering, feeling pain in her body because she walked so far that day, she was grateful to know how it felt to be in pain or to be poor. She was grateful for the experience, because then she better understood how the people she served felt and what they needed and why they needed it and how she best could help. It was like an education for her. If people needed food better than her, she gave it away. I was thinking about this woman who was coming into to Kalligat, and she was getting medicine and feeling better. She had a woman beside her who could not use her hands to feed herself. So when this woman who was getting better had a little bit more strength, she turned around and helped her fellow sister to feed her, because she couldn't do so. It was like spreading. I think that's part of Mother Teresa's legacy.
Mm-hmm.
That her person was, I mean, she did an amazing job, but it was spreading. It wasn't. She was never alone, because there always came someone else wanting to imitate her or to help her or to. When she came to Calcutta, she was used to being a teacher, and she wanted to help children on the street to learn to read and write and to go to school. So she just was sitting in the sand, writing the letters in the sand to help them to start to get to learn to read. And next day, somebody gave her a table. The other day, people came with chairs, food, materials. So it was, she had a way of, she didn't ask for something, but people wanted to give it to her. So it was spreading. The goodness was spreading. I mean, she was starting with one person, and then the next, and then the next after that. And then it became thousands and millions of people that she actually helped. And she spread the word, her word to the world. I mean, she won the finest prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. And she was able to speak to the audience about the poorest of the poor, about the love for them. She asked people to cancel the dinner. So instead of spending a lot of money on a wonderful dinner to everyone, it was given to the poor instead. Yeah.
It's terrific.
When she was out traveling, nobody could charge her. She was always flying for free. When she needed to go to the hospital, they couldn't charge her there either. They gave it for free.
They just wanted to?
They just wanted to. She never asked. Please, let us give this to you for free. Please, let us get involved.
So in the very beginning of her service, tell me how it started for her and how it got bigger.
She wasn't wanted in the beginning. People didn't like her. They thought she was a little bit crazy. Even within the Catholic Church, they didn't understand the vision she had. They didn't believe that she could do what she said she wanted to do, to live in the slums, helping the poorest of the poor. But she got permission and she started to do it. And people didn't want her to help the poor. They wanted her to get out of the way. They thought she might have some agenda that she didn't tell them about or something. But for instance, she was given this, when she was going to create this Kalligat, Home for Dying, the Hospice, she was giving a Hindu temple. That's why it's called Kalligat, because Kali is a Hindu god. And she was starting to treat people there. And the Hindu priests, a group of Hindu priests, they said they wanted her out of there. and they actually, some threat about killing her even came, so she was very hated. And she wasn't worried about that, and she said, if they kill me, I go quicker to God, and she was laughing. But then one of the priest's relatives came into this hospice, and so he went in and he saw himself the way these nuns were treating his family member. So he changed his mind, went back to his priest friends, and he said, okay, we will get rid of Mother Teresa if any of your sisters or your wives or your daughters can do the same work as she does. And that was the end of, they started to change, because nobody wanted to do the same work as she did. So she won in a very clever way, not with fighting back, not with screaming back, not with trying to convince with words, but with actions. Service, love, having the focus on the vision, her vision. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Okay, one more question.
And now I think she's a bridge between everyone.
Off face and non-face alike. Everyone's the same for her.
She doesn't, it's not important to her what religion you are in, or if you belong to a religion or not. If you're a human being, it's someone she will love.
So employee's the wrong word, but people like you, volunteers, employees, and colleagues, and other nuns, and all the people that help her do what she does. Tell me how she treats them, and what either she said or you derived by watching her, what the philosophy is, not just of the poorest of the poor who are kind of her customers or the people she's serving, but the people that she works with. How did she treat them, and what did that look like?
Before I came, I was writing a letter asking Mother Teresa if I could come. And the letter that I received back was, I was very welcome to come for a day or two or a week or a year. It didn't matter. I was very welcome. Just if whatever I wanted to do, I could join them in my own way. And that felt very, very generous. And she wasn't forceful. She wasn't demanding. She was just very welcoming, and everyone who wanted to be part of her work in any way, she welcomed. The people who were there when I was there were from different part of the world, different religions. There were just a mix, a blend of people, and I think that's what made it so beautiful. Everyone was drawn to her who was there. And I think we all felt very privileged to be in an environment like that. And we knew that this was probably once in a lifetime. Yeah. So very, very privileged. And she treated us all very well, and often with a sense of humor.
Yes, you make her sound funny. Was she funny?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was funny. And she wasn't interested if you, some people became nuns, not of the volunteers that I knew of, but she obviously had people wanting to be her nun, but nuns at her congregation, but no, she just wanted you to be happy in your own way and living your life your way. And she said that, and she meant it. So it was like it was holy ground, but in the same time it wasn't. And she was a human like you and me. She wasn't anything else. But there is a lot of power in being human if we choose to view the world with love and to treat people with dignity.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us to get leaders unstuck and thriving with their teams. You've heard a little bit about the power of bold encounters and leadership. Watch on. Go to full episodes with the iconic expert interviews at markspencercook.com/podcast. And please subscribe. My site takes you directly to YouTube video and podcast versions. Please make comments. Share this with your friends. Also, reach out to us to just brainstorm your priorities, challenges, events, or how Bold Encounters might help. Visit windfallpartners.com. Click the Let's Talk button without obligation and reach out. I look forward to speaking. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's lead with Bold Encounters today.